Hey everyone, here we are. We're about to start our presentation on K'ab Chaak. So thank you for tuning in, and we ask you to follow the page, subscribe, and enjoy tonight's lecture. It's going to be some really cool information and different angle on what the ruler of Caracol did for their people and for us. All right, so enjoy.
Buenas noches, damas y caballeros. Pleasant good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Vamos a dar inicio en pocos segundos a esta presentación magistral sobre uno de los temas muy significativos para nosotros. impulsados por el espíritu de K'ab Chaak, según nos dice el compañero Jorge, primer gobernante de la ciudad de Caracol. Muy bien, vamos a dar inicio y como es costumbre en estas presentaciones que Caché y la Casa de la Cultura presentan cada año, tituladas las conferencias de Arturo Bersabel, como quizá Mr. Giovanni en su momento nos podrá decir quién fue Arturo Bersabel y su papel, su rol que jugó en la historia, en la cultura de Benquevijo del Carmen, uno de los pioneros, primeros jesuitas, que impulsó también la educación formal en Benquevijo del Carmen en 1913. Muy importante, también fue un puente entre los visitantes que llegaban a Benquevijo del Carmen e hicieron esa conexión entre el Petén y Belice, entonces Honduras Británica. Les damos la bienvenida. We welcome you to these conferences. Sí, tenemos la primera y luego en otro momento, en el mes de octubre, tendremos la otra presentación. Pero nos ponemos de pie ahora para darle el honor, el respeto al himno nacional para así comenzar con esta conferencia, presentación. Muy bien, y antes de sentarnos, en el silencio de nuestros corazones, demos gracias a Dios por las bendiciones de este día y por habernos dado un buen tiempo esta tarde. Amén. Pueden sentarse. Yo pienso que Jorge, el compañero Jorge, realmente no necesita una introducción porque es muy bien conocido en nuestra comunidad y Caché, nosotros estamos muy orgullosos de tener a Jorge ahora como parte de este movimiento de Caché y les invitamos a ustedes también a formar parte como miembros activos o asociados del grupo de Caché. Jorge es guía de turistas, ¿no? He's been guiding in the industry, in tourism, for over 20 years, 20 años. Bastante tiempo, ¿no? Jorge founded the Belize Maya Writing Club over 10 years ago. Eso fue en el 2015, más o menos, 2015. He has held lectures and workshops on Maya writing in every district in Belize. He also served as president of the Cayo Tour Guide Association for over 7 years. Bueno, el hecho de que hay muchos guías de turismo acá demuestra el cariño, el apoyo que Jorge, lo que le tienen a Jorge, ¿verdad? And Jorge has designed and has run and drew the glyphs together with Christoph Helm for the stela that is situated at the niche headquarters in Belmopan that celebrates Belize's 40th anniversary of independence. So I didn't know that. So when you travel to Belmopan, notice the stela that is situated at the niche headquarters. Do know that Abenqueño y Jorge de León had much input in that. So we welcome Jorge to this first presentation on the series, Versabel lecture series. And the topic, the theme for today is Impelled by the Spirit of K'ab Chaak. Noting that we are celebrating Benke's anniversary on the 19th of October. El 19 de octubre celebramos el aniversario de Benke Viejo del Carmen. Y el Cayo. Sí. Gracias, Carmen. 1904, how many years is that? 121. 121 años de estar como municipio, aunque la fundación de Benke Viejo del Carmen fue mucho antes, ¿no? Y el Benke, tanto como el Benke como el Cayo, tienen un historial que va mucho más que 1904. So, that's the theme for our anniversary, impelled by our ancestral spirit to face the challenges of a culture, of an age of change, impulsado por el espíritu ancestral para navegar las aguas de una cultura, de una época de cambio. And that's the presentation tonight is se basa prácticamente en ese espíritu del primer gobernante de la ciudad de Caracol. So, Jorge, un round of applause, please, Jorge.
Muchas gracias. Thank you. All right, everyone who is here, I want to thank you for coming out. And so the information I want to share with you, the presentation tonight is Impelled by the Spirit of K'ab Chaak. And I want to thank Cache and everybody that is part of Cache that invited me to be part of these lectures. And it's an honor to be here and to be sharing this information. And for fellow guides, this is some really good information that we should have. And I know that we recently found the tomb of K'ab Chaak. So I want to present to you a slight different angle of how to see who K'ab Chaak was and what he did for Caracol and for Belize. So here we go. The theme for this year's anniversary is Impulsados por nuestro espíritu ancestral para navegar las mareas en una era de cambio. So that's the Spanish version to it. And then in English, it's impelled by our ancestral spirit to navigate the challenges of an era in flux. So, to impelled by our ancestral spirit, right? So it's impelled by the spirit of K'ab Chaak, being that he is the earliest known ruler for Caracol. Today, he is considered to be the founder of the dynasty of Caracol. And there's a lot of new information that we've gathered from him. So to celebrate him, to celebrate what he did and what that dynasty did for Caracol and for Belize, I want to highlight that, right? So it's impelled by that spirit that should drive all of us, right? And it's celebrating 121 years of Penquevejo, del Carmen, and of San Ignacio. All right, so we have the first governor of Belize's history. Belize first settled, or the first settlement in the country of Belize is 1200 BC, the city of K'ab Chaak. The first known ruler dates back to 331 AD. And we know we're talking about the K'ab Chaak. Penquevejo's down 1904, so that's why we're celebrating 121 years anniversary. Belize's independence was in 1981. But I want to start with this question. Is George Price Belizean? Was he born in Belize? Is the K'ab Chaak Belizean? Was he born in Belize? Right? So I ask this question because both of them were not born in Belize, but they were born to this land we now know as Belize. They were born in this land that we know as Belize since 1973. So one was born in British Honduras and the other one was born at Auschwitz. So it's the same land. And that is why when we talk about our ancestors, regardless of the name we give the land where we were born, we still consider them Belizeans, right? So K'ab Chaak is one of the first governors, rulers, leaders of Belize, right? Now, pre-classic is known for being formative, for being a period when people are finding themselves, and specialization starts to happen around this time, and it's guided by good leadership. Good leadership allows community to grow, allows people to grow and to specialize, and these are the things that allow communities to flourish. And Caracol was one of those communities that was able to flourish. And the leaders at this time were known as a house. Who is an ahau? What is an ahau? The ahau is a leader. Today we make reference to whether we're making reference to a ruler, a king, the lord of a city, the leader of a city. We call them ahau. The Maya called them ahaus, right? But what was expected of an ahau? What was expected of the leaders at that time? And we know that these leaders, some good, some bad, had their own way of governing. But one of the things that is very common and we have seen throughout the classic Maya is that most of these leaders were identified by having this logogram. So this logogram here, A, that's a how, that's a logogram for a how. B, that's another logogram for a how. This is another logogram for a how and a how. And their titles were composed of two logograms, a how and this symbol on the bottom, which means kukul. And kukul is holy. Here we have 5 versions of kukul, which is a logogram for divine or holy. And that composed what archaeologists refer to as emblem glyphs. These are royal titles that rulers added to their names, and we have been able to identify logograms throughout many of the Maya cities. And one of the things that we see in common is Kukul Ahau. So here in yellow, Kukul Ahau. Kukul Ahau again. There you see the main logogram. There is a Kanul from Kalakmul and Zibanche. Kukul Ahau. Kukul Ahau over there again. Again, Kukul Ahau. Kukul Ahau. So this is something that all the leaders, all the rulers had in common. They projected themselves as the divine rulers, the divine kings of all these cities, right? And among all the leaders of a community, only one of them would carry this title, the divine ruler, the divine king. And what we find is that when leaders are doing this, the leaders of Caracol decide to make a stand. And a stand for what? A stand for what is important. And what is important is the people. And we can highlight a lot of differences between Caracol and the rest of the Maya cities, the rulers of Caracol and the rulers of other cities. But today I want to start by highlighting that while every ruler refers to themselves as the divine ruler or the Kukul Ahau of a city, Caracol decides that the rulers of Caracol said, no, I am just an Ahau. And I am not divine. I am your leader, but I'm going to be the leader of Auschwitz. So the Ahau of Auschwitz. And this is a humble approach at governing. It's a humble approach at leading your people, moving forward. And you put your priorities straight and you decide what I want to do with my people, where do I want to take my community, how I need my community to grow. The earliest evidence that we have within the Maya writing system at Caracol is the stela right here. And in this stela, we find some hieroglyphs on this end, on this corridor, that makes mention of the second known ruler of the site, Kenitsut. And we have a Lancome date right here. Right? The Lancome date is the use of cycles of time, Bactons, Catons, Tons, Venals, and Kings. We're going to go over that on another presentation. But what is important and what I want to highlight here is that the ruler decided to make reference to himself not as a Kukul Ahau, but as just the Ahau of Auschwitz. And then he adds this title behind it. Katun Ahau of Auschwitz. That is the title that this ruler has or gives himself at 400 AD, not following everybody else, not following all the other rulers that we find. And one of the cool things about this is that we find this title. So here we have, so it says, K'ab Chaak, K'ab Chaak, or Chaak, Auschwitz, Ahau. Basically is the image, or here is portrayed the powerful Kenitsut, Katun priest, Auschwitz, Ahau, or king. But one of the things I want to highlight is that this same title, we find it in Honduras. The city of Copan, the founder of the city of Copan, he makes reference to himself as being the Auschwitz Ahau, and his name was Kenechi Yashkukmo, the founder of the dynasty of Copan. So the founder of the dynasty of Copan was Belizean. he was from Caracol, because he tells us not only in one monument, but he makes mention of it on another monument. So there's two monuments where he refers to himself as the Ahau of Auschwitz. Right? So we see that rulers of Caracol are sending their kids to govern other cities. They're being requested, they're being asked, people want them, they want to be ruled by these people. So they see qualities that they don't see in other kings. And so that's amazing to actually have cities want you to come to their cities, because what you do for your people, they want to see that done to their people. They want to see their communities flourish. So around 500 AD, something happens and there's a change. Yahweh Tikhanish II decides that he will no longer continue to use just the Ahau of Auschwitz. He says, no, well, I'm going to start using an emblem glyph, a different emblem glyph. And in this case, he starts using this emblem glyph. He uses Kuhul on the very top here, but then he goes Kan Tumak. Kuhul Kan Tumak. That became the emblem glyph for Caracol. And what does Kan Tumak mean? Well, Kuhul Kan Tumak. Kuhul, again, we share the same divine, but now he's not the Kuhul Ahau, he's not the traditional emblem glyph that we're seeing, but what we do see is Kuhul, and then he says Mak, which is here. And Mak is person. So now he's the divine person. But when you add and you add the Kantu to Mak, what the epigraphers have said is that it becomes a complete word, or what it means is an antonym for people. So it would be the antonym for people. So it's the people, the holy or the divine people of that particular land. And it's the holy land or the land of Auschwitz. Right? So you see how that changes everything? He still doesn't present himself as a Kuhul Ahau, but presents himself as a Kantumak, a Kuhul Kantumak. So it's an antonym for people of Auschwitz. Now, we can argue that Kan is yellow, but not in this case. Because at Caracol, the Maya at Caracol did not speak Yucatec. They spoke Cholan. So Kaan, or Kan, which means seat, could mean seat or throne if you use it on its own. But when you pair it or you put it along with the Kantumak, then it's the people or the holy throne of the people of Auschwitz. So it's a different approach of even acquiring a title, right? So, but having said all of this, the ruler of Caracol is not alone. He is in the middle of all these cities, which he can easily be influenced, he can easily be shaped and moved by what people are doing, by what people are saying, by what people should do, what he is expected to do as a ruler, as a Kuhul Ahau, but he's not moved by that. This shows us the relationship that was established between Caracol and every other city in the region. But yet, while there was conflicts, you see how the red lines are conflicts among all the cities, the white lines are relationships. The thicker white lines are closer or dynastic ties between one city and the other. So Caracol was not isolated. Because if it would be isolated, it would be easy for him to just continue to be different. But no, he is connected to everything that happens in the region. So whether he's being influenced or he's influencing somebody else, it is happening. What does the archaeological evidence show? Well, the archaeological evidence shows that the influence of Caracol shows up near San Ignacio, near Cayo, because we have found the presence of finger bowls at Cajalpech and at Baking Pot. And a finger bowl offering is an offering that is very commonly found at Caracol. But now we start finding it in other cities. So we start finding something that is very common in one city, all of a sudden it's spreading because of its influence that it has had in the region. So just for us to have a visual idea of where this influence is going. So Caracol is right here, and we are somewhere around here, where San Ignacio is. So then, this is how far the influence is coming. Whether you're using the river, whether you're walking, but it's a long way to go from Caracol to San Ignacio. And if you say that's amazing and you think that's a long way to go, well, guess what? What about Copan? Remember I said earlier, the founder of Copan was born at Caracol. And the evidence is there, where he refers to himself as a Auschwitz Kashom or Kahom, which is the Lord. And he's also named Three-Hill Lord or Auschwitz How on Stella J. And how far is Copan from Caracol? Well, that's the amount of distance that they would have to travel. Right? So we're talking about influence, we're talking about making your presence felt in the region. But it's not only there, because this is 400, and 400 AD in Copan, we start finding evidence of Teotihuacan influence in architecture. Well, how far is Teotihuacan? Central Mexico. And here is Caracol. So the ruler that went down to Honduras had already made contact with Teotihuacan. And to confirm this, recent discoveries have allowed us to make that connection. And we know that Teotihuacan was already trading and had contact with Caracol as early as 200 or 100, between 150 to 200 AD. So, talk about influence. Now, let's talk a little bit about why did the Maya settle where they settled? Why Caracol? Why in that area? What is happening? Well, let's understand what triggers people's settlement or why they're settling in these different places. And it is not the river, because there's no river close to Caracol. Right? So that was not the main reason people settled back then. The main reason was agriculture. And we know that within agriculture, one of the first things that was manipulated by man, modified by man, was corn. The earliest form of corn is still Sinte. And today we can enjoy a nice corn cob and ishpasha and all the other things that you can make from corn. 100 ways of eating corn. But to practice agriculture, you need to understand the terrain. You need to understand where you're living. And we know that Caracol, the terrain is rugged, it's very hilly, and it's a karst environment. Now, the residents of the city had to modify, and they constructed an agricultural terraces and residential reservoirs, right? And I'm going to focus on these two because they created, here I have anthropogenic garden city landscape. They modified, it's a landscape that they modified. When humans are able to modify it to their liking or to their benefit, you modify your landscape to create this beautiful garden city of Caracol. And what they did, because of all the hills, terracing. The Maya, and I know you have read it, the Maya practiced intensive terracing agriculture. Every hillside was terraced, and if it was either terraced for farming or it was terraced for housing. But you had to perform these terraces or build these terraces. Urban planning. Why? How? What do you need? Well, sharing their resources. The dynasty wanted to share their resources, share their values and ritual practices. These are great differences that Caracol had and what the dynasty decided to do. They shared their education. The chases and the research show that the dynasty of Caracol allowed their people in the middle class to be educated. We found so much hieroglyphic evidence that they were able to say and determine that Caracol's middle class was educated. They even found a capstone with a carving of an individual with a date and hieroglyphs, 3 kilometers away from the center of the city. Right? So we're finding all this information, and it's all because the leaders want what's best for their people. Right? And within that planning of the city, what archaeologists have found out is that within this area that was mapped, 80% of this area has what archaeologists consider to be eastern, the east building are shrines, eastern focus buildings, right? So that means that the same rituals that are happening in the eastern buildings in the center of the city of Caracol are happening on the outskirts of Caracol. And these dots that you're looking at, they are not homes. These dots are suburbs. They're plazas that have more than one structure. There are at least 4 to 5 buildings within every dot that you see there. And the ones that are bigger have more than 4 or 5 structures within them, right? So here, I just wanted to include this because all the information I'm sharing is coming out from the research that has been done at Caracol for over the past 30 years, right? So it's 80% of the residential groups are eastern focused. And of the area that I showed you, 60% of the plazuelas or residential areas completed map between this area are eastern focused. And 95% of the eastern focus groups contain tombs. So that means that there is a 5% of the construction that was there that are tombs that you can consider that these tombs were made for future use. So the tombs were made so that when somebody dies, we can then put them in there, right? So they're spending a lot of their resources on their city. They're spending the resources because, and that would be the downtown of Caracol. When you visit Caracol, you visit and you're able to explore less than 1% of the city. This is the downtown area. Normally we walk around this little area right here. And that takes us 3 to 4 hours. Right? So you barely get to scratch the surface when it comes to the city of Caracol. And all these roads that you see here are roads leading out from the city of Caracol. That is why Caracol is compared to Washington and Paris. Remember I talked about urban planning? You have to plan this. And something else. Because of that, that terrain, greater hazard for soil erosion. Because it's a lot of hills. Fall runoff. So the construction of distributed residential reservoirs and agricultural terraces acted to collect rainfall and increase soil saturation. So to prevent erosion from happening, the Maya had to build these terraces, right? And how did they do it? By putting walls, retaining walls. You put a retaining wall, retaining wall, retaining wall. And this is what has been found at Caracol. Every slope has some type of terrace. If it's not for agriculture, it's for housing. Now, we know that if you don't do this, water, stays here. Yes, it will run off, but then it's catched again, and then again, and it flows on again. So terrace, so the water runs back and forth, and then reduces soil erosion. But if you don't do this, and you get this, water will just wash off, and run off, and will take the topsoil, and before you know it, you don't have any good soil. And we know that most of these cities were inhabited for a very long period of time. 300 years of erosion, you would end with no topsoil, no agricultural area, no food, and then you would have to move faster. So it was important to understand where you're living and what you can do to maximize production and what's best for my people, right? And to do this, these is images of LiDAR. You can see all the terracing here. All the terracing on all the hills. See the terracing. All these are terracing. Many of the terracing are done for agriculture, for housing. And on top of the hills, what do you have? This downtown of Caracol is here. But you have residents there, there, here. And wherever there was not a hill, they might have built one. We have found a lot of raised platforms where they would have middle-class residences. And here you can see some of the roads. This is the main road that goes out. This is one of the causeways. This causeway comes here. There's another causeway here. There's a causeway right here. You can see. You can see it here. There's another one that goes out this way. Right? So this is another angle. So here we have Cana. Cana is here. Central Acropolis. This is the Astronomical Observatory. This is South Acropolis. This is the reservoir that has water when you go to Caracol. But what I want you to see, and I want to highlight, behind Cana, there's a steep drop-off. And you can see the drop-off right here. And then it comes here, continue drops off here. So when it rains, all the water that falls here is guided and channeled into the reservoir. So it was important to capture the water. Here you have the reservoirs on the outskirts, and here you see the roads. This is a beautiful artistic rendition of Caracol. So you have all these residences, and between the residences, you have green. But this green here, just like this little corner, is agriculture. So whatever was not used for agriculture was plastered so that then you can collect water to fill the reservoirs. Right? Here you go again. And this would be terraced on the bottom, water will, and eventually you get that water into your reservoirs. So plazas were then plastered, and water falls on the structures, falls on the plaza, and because plazas are then angled, the water flows into the reservoirs. This is an artistic rendition of the K'ab, and what I wanted to show how water as a water catchment, and this is what was happening with every plaza at Caracol. Now, this is the map of the K'ab. You know how many water reservoirs have been recorded at the K'ab? 75. And if 75 has been recorded and there's about 25 of them in the center of the city, well, if this has 75, how much would you say Caracol would have? And if you want to do the logical thing, you could say, well, it's about twice the size, so 200, which is cool, but guess what? At the end of every road, there's what archaeologists refer to as causeway terminus. Major constructions at every end of these roads. And because of the density of houses, that means that all these houses, all these that were plazas that were plastered to collect water. And where did the water go? Well, this is the map of Caracol. And take a look at this. Every dot is a reservoir. Archaeologists have found almost 1,600 water reservoirs at Caracol. And to have these 1,600 water reservoirs filled with water, you need water catchment. And people in the outskirts of Caracol, people living in the outskirts, did not have the resources to plaster their plazas, to plaster their buildings, to raise floors. So this had to be commissioned and funded by central government. So somebody in charge who has access to all the resources needs to say, I need to plan for my people. And one of the most important resources that my people need is water, is food. So Caracol focus on agriculture and water management. Hey, today we build roads and then they forget to put drains and then we flood. These cities were planned. These cities, they were thinking about what's best for my people. And this is what Caracol was doing. And just like the K'ab Chaak, we, Belizeans, have the same genetic composition in us to be this type of leaders. Yes, they were born at Auschwitz. George Price was born at British Honduras. You are now born in Belize. You genetically have the same build, and just by that, you should be motivated, you should be impelled to be good leaders, to be good people, to do what's best for your people, do what's best for your family, for your neighbor.
Jorge,
Yes.
I have a question about how many people are we talking about, more or less?
The population of Caracol at its peak would have been about 150,000 people, if not a little bit more. Yes, and this is based on number of buildings that were there and how many people could have been supported by the water that the city would have had. And this does not, and we do not have a number or estimate of how large the city would have been on the Guatemalan side. because the research stops at the border. So if you see here, this is the city, but the city stops here. This is the borderline. So what happens in Guatemala, we do not know. This road, one of these roads goes to La Rejoya. This Sacbe actually connects the city of Caracol, the center of Caracol, with La Rejoya that is in Guatemala. But that research has not been done because, well, the chases have been working in the weeds, and the permits on the other side, that would be another type of research and other agreements that need to be signed for them to be allowed to study what's going on in Guatemala. So for now, this is what we have. But I'm pretty sure if you want to add another bit like this over here, you can easily add another 50,000 people. Easy. All right? All right. K'ab Chaak. Now, his name, or how do we know who he is and how do we say his name? Well, his name was found in several monuments. Stela 22 and Balcour Marker 3, we have his name. And right in this corner, here we have the name of K'ab Chaak and the emblem glyph of Caracol. So Te as a logogram, K'ab, Cha, and Ki. K'ab Chaak. And that is the name of the first ruler of Caracol. And right next to him, right here, we have the emblem glyph. So it's K'ab Chaak, Kuhul Kantumak, Utiya. And then it happened, and this is the date that takes us back. It's a distance number that takes us back to 331 AD from the present day, and it tells us that he, Ukuts, he made, and making reference to this guy, he's a lesser lord of Caracol, and he's the second son from Ushwitza, from Caracol, from Ushwitza, part of the name of this person, and then names the ruler who presently governs the city of Caracol. And the name is Kenich Hoykawil Kuhul Kan Tumak, and he is, this is 20, 5, 6, 7. He is the 27th Ahaw. Notice he doesn't say I am the Kuhul Ahaw. Here he says I am the 27th Ahaw of Auschwitz. Right? So he names himself as the Holy Lord of the people of Caracol, but he is the 27th Ahaw of Auschwitz. So even there he's being humbled. Even though they're using some sort of emblem glyph, he's still humbled by that, right? Now, we have found evidence of Teotihuacan, and we're talking about 1,200 kilometers from Belize. So these guys were walking or taking the coast and then taking rivers to get to Caracol. But this is what Teotihuacan looks like. And I just want to highlight, look at the steps and look at the balustrades. All these buildings have balustrades. These little railings. This is La Entrada. This is when Teotihuacan entered Tikal. And within that conflict, they killed the ruler of Tikal and took over. I'll give you details on another presentation. But here you have the balustrades at Teotihuacan, at Tikal, balustrades at Tikal again, and here we have them at Caracol. We have balustrades here. On this section here, there's a building that is now buried, but it has a talud tablero, it's a panel and slope building, that's a Teotihuacan style architecture, has been found on this end right here. But today, it's buried so you can't see, but you can see this right here. So Teotihuacan architecture at the city of Caracol. Now, structure B33, so it would be east of Cana, the residential palace that is here, near Barrio. This is where K'ab Chaak was found. And first, I want to talk about this female that was found in this burial. And she had a shell bead necklace and 4 pottery vessels. So something cool about the pottery vessels that they found with her had similar paintings that were found in the tomb of K'ab Chaak, similar paintings that were found in another burial I'm going to talk to you right now, that was cremated, a cremation that was done. So that is a building. the cremation found 3 individuals, 20 ceramic vessels, a partial metate. That metate more likely came from the mountain pine ridge. And we know that a couple of years ago we found the quarry where and the workshop where these granite manus and metates were being made. We found at least 1 mirror and a host of shell and jadeite beads, broken carved shells and bone, shell tip for atlatl. Now the atlatl is a favorite or a weapon used by Teotihuacan, so it was found within that cremation pit. And again, it's related to Teotihuacan, right? And the date would be 220 to 345 AD or 370 to 375. And this date would still put Teotihuacan at Caracol before the 378 AD when K'ab came into Guatemala and Teotihuacan influenced over Tikal and that conflict. So Caracol had established a relationship with Teotihuacan before the Tikal conflict, right? And that cremation happened in the middle of this plaza. And what I want to talk to you about is that, so here, this is how far Teotihuacan they would have had to walk. But I also want to mention that we found evidence of Caracol having communication with a city in Guatemala City, Caminalcuyu. And what evidence is that? Well, we found in structure B34, dating to 150 AD, we found a woman that was buried and she was dressed in an Ixchel costume, like a moon goddess. And along with her, there was a mantle that was composed of over 7,000 shells and jadeite beads, and 32 ceramic vessels. But of them, there were many of them, or several of them, that came from Caminalcuyu. Right? So now you see what I was talking about, influencing. So now all of a sudden, the city of Caracol has connections with central Mexico, with Honduras, with Highlands of Guatemala or Guatemala City. So there's a lot of important people that want to be associated with the family of Caracol. And this is where her tomb was found. And this is the building. Here is where the tomb was done. And her tomb was right here. So when you look at the angle, it was here. Well, this is her tomb. And below her tomb, we found another tomb. This is the K'ab Chaak tomb, but hers was right above it. And we found ceramic from this tomb, from the other tomb that I talked earlier, that had similar paintings. And so all of this, and this is the reason why archaeologists are connecting all these people that are living around the same time and making that connection, right? So K'ab Chaak tomb was found underneath that same building, underneath this building, and it's right here, right? So they went from the top. They had already done research there, so they just went down, and as they took off the capstone, so they went down, and on one of the corner, actually the southern corner of the tomb, by removing the capstones, they were able to go in. And as they went in, they made a little ladder to go down, so the guy is coming down from here. And when they got here, guess what they found? They found some of the capstones, many of them were limestone, but they found some slate stone that were capping the tomb, right? What else was found within that tomb? The southern end was filled with cinnabar. So cinnabar was spread all over this area here. And this is where we found the head of the individual that was buried here. And here another, and the little altar that is here is an ik symbol. So it's like a wind, right? This is a wind symbol. Here we have one of the archaeologists for scale, as they're trying to start to remove some of the artifacts, and you could see these ceramics. I'll give you show some photos of what they look like and the details they have. Right? Now, the skull was separated from the body. So the body was laid. Yes, the skull was still to the south, The body was laid with head to the south, but the head was not in its place. The skull had been removed, and it was not beheaded, but the head had been placed in a vessel. So it says it was separated. So it wasn't chopped off. It was found upside down in a ceramic vessel on the north end of the chamber, along with 2 vertebrae, right? No cut marks. So no signs of any cut marks were found. So he was not decapitated, right? And we also found Pacific spondyloshells, and within that same vessel where the cranium was found. Something else that I need to highlight is the complete femur that was found, and thanks to that, they were able to do an estimate of the height of the K'ab Chaak. So he would have been 5'7", right? A little bit shorter than I, but that would be the height of this ruler. So now we know the height based on that evidence. Because the skull was taken and placed on a ceramic, the lower mandible was found in this position with a spondyloshell right above it, right? So this is, and what the report continues saying that this individual did not have, was a very old individual and didn't have many teeth, as you can see here, right? Then this right here, all these little pieces of jade that you see here, this is what composed the death mask that was found within this tomb. And it has not been put together. They're working on that. But just for us to have an idea of what a death mask looks like, I have a photo of what the death mask of the King Pakal. So probably going to look something like this. So all the pieces when put together might look something like that. I just wanted to, so that we can imagine or visualize what a death mask could be like, right? What I was found, so in the tomb we had jadeite jewelry, elaborate carved pottery vessels, bone tubes, spondyloshells, a mosaic jadeite mask which I just showed you. So it shows status Maya elite burial. They also found deities, rulers, and bone captives. So that will, so this is what we have. So here we have the person's head. The hands are tied, and then you could see his butt, and then his feet are tied. So these are images from one of the balls. And then here we have another one here. See how the hands are tied on the face of this guy? You could see his feet right here. This looks like a Korimundi head, and this looks like a maca head. So here we go. So the Korimundi. This one, on the lid, there was a drawing of Ekchua, which is the Maya merchant god, Ekchua. This is what we found here. That was drawn on the lid of this one. Again, the maca. You could see the person's feet right here that are tied. And then what you have there is this. See the lips, the nose, and this person looking down, the hand making an offering. So rolling an offering. So these are some of the details that we have. And here we have another person holding a spear. See the point of a spear. Again, wearing the jaguar pelt. And the end right here. This looks like an owl. And this is pretty cool. Because this one, look at the lid. Look what it says the lid has the head of a spider monkey. But when you look on the lid from above, the spider monkey is here, and you could see the hand of the spider monkey, the feet of the spider monkey, and look at the tail of the spider monkey. But then the back of the spider monkey, they shaped it like a turtle shell. Check it out. Pretty cool. Pretty cool. My beads run away. Thank you. That was the presentation. So, thank you very much.
We'll open the floor now for a couple of questions, 5-10 minutes of questions. If you have any questions or
questions?
I have one.
Yeah.
Have there been any themes on the Popol Vuh they found in the country, wherever in the Caracol?
I'm pretty sure they have. I'm not aware of it. It doesn't come to my mind right off the bat right now. But I'm pretty sure they have found stuff. But I just haven't come across it. But I'm pretty sure they have. You got to keep in mind that it's been over 20 years of research, you know, and almost 40 years of research at Caracol, and it's a lot of the research papers are now made available to us, and it's some of the details are not necessarily highlighted for us. So for tour guides, if we want to know anything about the site, we have to go through an archaeological report. So that makes it a little bit difficult to just find some of these cool things. But you know, because now it's available, and there are more guides reading and doing the research, I think we're going to be able to have more of that information handy. But at the moment, I don't have any, nothing comes to my mind. I don't know if any of the guys here have seen anything, but I don't, not that I remember right off the bat. But I'm pretty sure we have. Any other question?
What about the Khan dynasty? Where does the title Khan originate from?
Oh, the Khan dynasty? Okay, the Khan dynasty is the dynasty that, okay, the Khan dynasty, from research right now, it would have originated in the Mirador Basin, so it would be the city of El Mirador. But for us, it took relevance when the Khan dynasty started moving their influence from Zebanche. And it was one of the most powerful dynasties in the region. And then there was a conflict between kings of the Khan dynasty that moved the power, or the seat of power was moved from Zebanche to Calakmul. And the word Khan is snake, so it is the snake dynasty. So when researchers talk about the snake dynasty or the Khan dynasty, they're making reference to the dynasty that governed Calakmul. Now, one of the cool things about that dynasty is that in its early phase of history, when they were governing Zebanche, the Khan dynasty, within their emblem glyph, they added a phonetic complement, La, to that logo. So then it would be referred to as the Kanul dynasty. So it was the Kanul dynasty, and then when it moved to Calakmul, we find that most of the emblem glyphs do not have the La complement, but it's only the head of the snake. And that is why it's now, then it's only referred to as the Khan dynasty, no longer the Kanul. But it was the Kanul at one point, and it became the Khan. But it's the same family, the same people, and it's just a matter of how they would write it. Right? And that's the dynasty that was very important in the region. It held a conflict with Tikal, and to get rid of Tikal and to empower themselves of the trade routes that Tikal had, they were able, or they actually established a connection with Caracol by marrying one of the princess from Calakmul, to the Caracol dynasty, and that gave them an edge over Tikal. And this marriage happened after the ruler of Caracol actually killed the king of Tikal. And then that marriage happened, cemented that tie or that alliance between the Caracol dynasty and the Khan dynasty. And that opened the door for Caracol to expand, for Calakmul to expand. And it was well-lived until the ruler of Tikal, Hasau Chankawil, came to power, who then was able to conquer the Khan dynasty and then took Tikal back to power, and then Caracol went dormant for a while. So there was a lot of fight, and the Khan dynasty was one of the main actors within that power struggle of the classic Any other question? Yes.
Thank you very much. I thought that the most important, the most interesting part of the lecture, the charla, was understanding that people, real people live there, and the relationship between the rulers and the people, and the fact that these guys were, in fact, very much worried about making sure that the people had a good life, So this is what is always missing in archaeology, because you go to a site and you see the architecture, it doesn't tell you anything. It doesn't really tell me anything. So once you know you have access to this information, I think a lot of young people will be interested in history, for example, of the Maya, learning about the Maya.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, and it's I think it's important to highlight the people of the cities, because you go to all these ancient cities and you're overwhelmed by the architecture and what they accomplish, and but it's what did they do with what they accomplished, and to understand, and this is what is important, is I think we need to know that we had not only the largest ancient Maya city in Belize and one of the most important cities in the Maya region, the attitude the leaders had towards their people. And I think that's one of the most important things that we need to understand, that, they decided to take the resources they had and invest it in their city, develop their city, instead of building temples to honor themselves. Unlike other cities where kings are building all these temples to glorify themselves. The Caracol dynasty decided to go a different route, and maximize what's best for my people, rather than build myself a temple for me to be worshipped. So that, I think, is something we need to highlight, and because we do not highlight it enough, people don't see the importance of it. And one of the questions we always get is, so which city is the largest? Which is the biggest? Right? But when you understand what the people did, then yes, I want to see a big temple, but I think you would appreciate it more if you know what the people did for the people of Caracol. And then you go for that. I think that should be our selling point. The people that govern the city of Caracol. So yeah, thank you for appreciating that. Yeah. Any other question or?
Jorge,
Yes.
in your presentation, you focused a lot on water,
Yes.
agriculture, terracing, etc. Water, or lack thereof, has also been associated with the downfall of the Maya. How do you reconcile some of those characteristics?
Well, last year, earlier this year, I think we had a lecture by Dr. Chase, and one of the things he highlighted is that during the Terminal Classic to the Post-Classic period, the Terminal Classic period, there was a time of very hard times for agriculture in the central and lowlands. But Caracol, according to his research, he says Caracol did not suffer from that problem because they had plenty water. You see, they had prepared themselves so well that even so their reservoirs were filled, and even when you did not get the plenty rains that you were expected, the city had enough water. And what he proposes is that the reason for the collapse of the city of Caracol, or the abandonment of Caracol, was because of trade routes. Of course, you got to keep in mind that it is one factor, because we know for a fact that there was droughts during that time, and agriculture will not function without rain, because even today, all of our farmers depend on the rainy season. If something goes bad with the rainy season, our crops will fail, right? So you have to understand that they're connected, and yes, you did not have rainwater, but you had water to live. So, so he says that the reason for the abandonment of Caracol would have been the change of trade routes, right? But then again, you need to analyze that a trade route will change if I, as a businessman, I come to your city and you have nothing to trade because you've had droughts. So then obviously that trade route I will no longer come to do business with you because you don't have anything to offer. And then that trade route, when it changes, it forces me the citizen of Caracol to move towards where that trade route has been moved. And then eventually it's too far to travel from point A to point B. That just forces me to just completely leave what was my home and then readjust or relocate to a different location, which is basically what happened in the Terminal Classic. Terminal period is Maya relocated to a place where food was plentiful and where you could survive. Right? So I don't know if that answers the question, but yeah. Any other question? All right, I just want to thank you for coming up and coming out and listening to this lecture. And next Friday, we'll have another one. So please, and every Friday until every Friday, or the Friday, every 2 Fridays, every 2 Fridays, you're going to be out here. So, all right, thank you very much. And for the ones online, thank you.
All right.
Un fuerte aplauso para Jorge. Round of applause. Let me see. Como maestro. Carla, what stays with you after hearing this presentation? Carla? You were paying attention. What stays with you?
Welcome back.
Okay, the architecture, the Teotihuacan influence. What stays with me is that they chose to build bridges rather than burning them down, right? All this networking, while all this warfare may have been going on, so they chose to build bridges. That stays with me. And another thing is the fact that instead of glorifying themselves,